why do you call yourself as a life architect?
So just like an architect has a blueprint, if you can create the blueprint of your life, you can do it at any age. Because we have always been taught that it's destiny or it's always going to be a certain way, and that's absolutely false. So when we talk about life architecture, you are the architect of your own life.
Would you be able to define like why yoga is so important, in why it matters, what impact it can create in all of our life?
We're always working on other people's agendas. I am doing this for my husband. I am doing this for my child. So then you're always going to be in a state of less than. And when you're in a state of less than, you start treating yourself less than. So if you love yourself and if you put yourself first, then you're there for everybody else because you're happy.
So we see that in the today's world, like a lot of yoga practices are there, like Ashtanga yoga, Hatha yoga, Kundalini awakening. How would someone choose that which one is for me?
Every yoga may not be the right for every person. So some people want to do a slow practice, Hatha yoga. Some people want to do a really vigorous practice, Ashtanga yoga. If you want an experience on the physical, mental, emotional, psychological, subconscious level, Kundalini yoga.
What is exactly the chakra healing? How does it heal us? And when do we come to know that it is really working?
Everything is working on a frequency. Every thought, word, emotion, action is got a frequency. Every chakra in the body, every chakra has a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological function.
So I would like to share one experiences. My mom, she was having the liver chronic disease for COVID. In August, and she got a jaundice, and in the November, December that they said that you need to do a liver transplant. But my mom started practicing pranayama, yogas and all. And I saw the result over there, like within a month, her levels were decreased. Till now, she is practicing the yoga, pranayam, everything. And her sugar levels, her like all the BP levels, all are normal.
What I'm noticing in your story is consistency and belief. Even if you do something consistently but you don't have belief, you're sabotaging yourself. So she had the belief that I will heal myself, my body will heal. So when she started doing these mindful practices, nourishing her body with sattvic food, taking homeopathy, everything is a frequency. So Nikola Tesla famously once said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of frequency, energy and vibration.
So this yoga day, what message you would like to give it to audience for yoga, for their health, for their nutrition?
Self-love is above all. Love yourself, put yourself first. Self-care is the best care because when you are in a good space, you will be able to provide value to others. This yoga day, I would ask people to take a step and go within because you will never find answers outside. The entire universe is within you.
Thank you for coming to this show. It's nice. It's honor to have you here. So you mentioned yourself as a life architect. Can you let us know your yoga journey and why do you call yourself as a life architect?
So you're most welcome, Raki. It's an honor to be here and to talk to you. So yes, I'm known as the life architect. So I lovingly tagged myself the life architect. So now it's what everybody knows me by. So when we talk about architecture, it's something that you can create from scratch because you have the free will to create something that you desire. So just like an architect has a blueprint, if you can create the blueprint of your life, you can do it at any age. So I don't want people to be limited by either age or gender or economic, segregation or any of that sort because we have always been taught that it's destiny or it's always going to be a certain way, and that's absolutely false. So when we talk about life architecture, you are the architect of your own life. So once you know how your energy functions, how your thoughts, your words, your emotions, your interactions, your abundance, how everything needs to be aligned in a particular way, then your life will flow in alignment. So to answer your question more specifically, I never had any tools when I was growing up. Because in those days, you had to go to school, you had to go to college, and you had to either become a doctor or an engineer or work in corporate. And I decided not to do any of them, even though I stood, 62nd in the university in Karnataka. I just decided I wanted to be a singer. And so I just was traveling all over the world and singing. And then I landed up in Mumbai. And, I had to fall many times, get up, learn, grow. Sometimes I didn't. Then, bear the repercussions of what you couldn't do. because every action has a equal and opposite reaction,
True.
So if you make mistakes, you have to pay the price for them.
Correct.
And so I had to learn like that. So I've constantly tried in my life to be on a path of evolution. But I've made many mistakes. And so I didn't want people to make as many mistakes as I made in my life. Because when you have a coach or a mentor or a therapist or a counselor, any of these callings in life, then it's much easier for you to learn quickly. And if you're smart, to implement it even more quickly.
True.
So that's the basic story as to why I came up with the Life Architect.
Okay. And how you started your company and what all things that you are expert of and you mastered it.
Okay. So I don't think I've mastered anything, Rakhi, in all honesty. I'm still a learner and I want to forever be a learner. I have learned from people who either call themselves masters or people call them masters, and that's on them. But I went to learn from them for the simple reason is because I didn't know what they knew. So I wanted to always learn from people who knew more than me. But my life was not always like this. Like I said, I was in Bollywood for a long time. I decided not to do my MBA. So my parents were very disappointed with me. Entire extended family, like my mamas, mamis, chachas, chachis, all those people were like, oh my God, everyone in our family, because I come from a family of very esteemed professionals. Like my grand uncle was the first dean of St. John's. My mum's brother was on the cover of Time magazine. He's performed the Whipple surgery very successfully, which is the most difficult surgery to perform. Another cousin has operated, on a very famous celebrity's son. So these are all things that people would want you to aspire to be. And I just didn't want to study. I wanted to sing. I wanted to entertain people because I was good at it. And so I had to learn the hard way. And I think I was so unhappy in Bollywood, in show business, because initially people will think that fame, money, popularity, they are like the most important things that you want, that you aspire to have. Especially nowadays, money and fame, everybody wants to be an influencer. Everybody wants to drive the latest car. So I also thought in those days that that was it. But when I finally got everything, I realized that there was still something in me that was yearning for more. So I had to do a lot of exploration. So I began to really start studying. I wanted to know, how does the human body, mind function? So I was always a very spiritual person, but I would mask it with religion. So I would go to church every Sunday, because I grew up in a convent and boarding school. So that was very important. But then I discovered that even that wasn't giving me, religion wasn't giving me any kind of satisfaction. What I wanted was to be a spiritual being. So I decided after quite a lot of deliberation, and my story is quite checkered and goes along many twists and turns. So we may not have in time for all of it today. But there were some milestones in my life through a failed relationship, through my father's death, that I understood that this life is very fleeting. And nothing on the material plane gives us satisfaction that's lasting. The only thing that gives a person satisfaction that's lasting is an internal happiness, because happiness doesn't come from a product or another person. Happiness is an internal state, because you may be married or you may be in a relationship with the most handsome person or, the most richest person or whatever the, excesses are. But then why do people get divorced?
True.
Why do celebrities commit suicide? They have everything that you would want, but still, they're killing themselves. So all this made me question, what is life and what is the purpose? And at that point in time, I discovered Buddhism. So I actually changed my religion. And I don't think Buddhism is a religion, it's a way of life. But conventionally, people would say it's a religion. So I changed from Catholicism to Buddhism. So again, there was a lot of I was upsetting the apple cart, so to speak, in my family. People were like, oh my God, it's so blasphemous what she's done. She's never going to be forgiven. But I never even thought twice about it. I just knew that this is my path. And I think I learned to trust myself. I learned to open my heart and trust my intuition. And then I started to explore energy science, spirituality, pranic healing, different modalities. I began studying Buddhist psychology. I began meditating every day. I began doing certain rituals that I liked. So I'm not a very, I'm quite bohemian as a person. I don't do what people expect me to do. I do what I want to do.
Correct. Got it.
And so through that, I discovered, that I want to be a healer. Because His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, who's one of my gurus, when I was talking to him once, he said, there are so many singers in this world, but there are no healers. And in 3 months, I packed up everything in Bombay and I came back to Bangalore. I took a loan from someone, very kind-hearted soul. And I started my own company, Avril Skews. And then another person came forward to help me and said, oh, I'll do an article for you in the Times of India. And I said, but I don't have 50, 60, 70,000 to pay you. And he said, no, I'll do it for you. So, there's a saying, the universe conspires to help you. So people were just coming out of nowhere to help me. And one person led to another. And then, my business began to grow after that. But then they say, when there's growth, then you have to get ready to fall. So during COVID, I completely lost everything. My entire business, whatever I built up for 3 years, everything went down during COVID because nobody wanted to come to therapy. There was no concept of online yoga classes.
Yeah.
So people would come to, where I was doing yoga at that time I was doing it in a very big international co-working space. And people would be like, ma'am, how are you going to teach yoga online? There was no Zoom, if you remember. So there was no concept. And then Zoom it was just coming up at that time. And then they took advantage of it. And then, and the first time I did an online class, even I was confused. How am I going to correct the student's posture and how is it going to work? It was very confusing even for trainers. But then again, I began to work myself way up and began certifying as an ICF PCC coach. I began doing my mindfulness certification. I studied positive psychology. I began doing work with the fascia in the body and began doing somatic therapy. And I tested everything on myself because I am the most skeptical person.
Okay.
In the sense that I'm not a skeptical person when it comes to life, when it comes to people. I love people, I love life. But I'm very skeptical about telling you something and making you believe in it if I have even 1% doubt. So, so that's my story. I had to test everything on myself. Then I would ask a few of my close friends to be guinea pigs. And I would say, I'll send you healing like this. I'll do this. Will you, And they very sweetly, some of them said, yes, sure, and whatever. And that's how I discovered so many different modalities. And I wanted to be a multifunctional therapist. Because I don't believe that one thing will help everybody. Because we human beings are all different. Even identical twins are different. So then why would you think that only one therapy is going to help X amount of people? So when a person comes to me, I do what we call an analysis. It's called a chemistry session. And I analyze you as a person and I let you speak and I let you be who you are. And then I discover, so then I know who Rakhi is. And then I know what I should do for Rakhi. Should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do a combination? Should I bring this in later? Should I do this first? Because you have to respect the person who's coming to you for help. So I don't tell people what to do. I see a lot of coaches online, especially on Instagram. They're very young, what we call wet behind the ears, and they don't know. They've seen a few YouTube videos, they've done some group classes and they're calling themselves coaches. But they're telling people what to do. I never tell people what to do. A good coach should never tell a person what to do. You should offer a person, I'm suggesting this. Do you want to do this? The person has every right to say, no, I don't want to.
True.
So that's how I came up with my company and how I've decided to practice as a multifunctional therapist and coach.
Got it. So as we know that we are shooting this podcast for the Yoga International Day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we are reminding people again the importance of yoga. So in the fast-paced world, I'm living in a Bangalore. I know I don't get time for like all of these things. I know this is the high priority, but still I'm not able to do it consistently. So for people like me, would you be able to define like why yoga is so important, in why it matters, what impact it can create in all of our life, And what is yoga to you? Like how you will define it?
Okay. So we didn't talk about yoga initially because I studied yoga with a student of Guruji B.K. Iyengar's grandson. So B.K. Iyengarji's grandson had a very astute student, Pradeep, and he was my first yoga teacher maybe 18 years ago. And so I studied BKS Iyengar yoga with props, without props. But I was doing it only for myself. I didn't ever think I would teach yoga. But during, as I think just when COVID hit, I of course had a change of life. So I entered something which women now know as perimenopause. And my hormones were very, very badly affected. And I was putting on weight. I was getting a lot of disturbances in my body and my mind. My mental health was, affected detrimentally. And that's when I, for some reason, discovered Kundalini Yoga. I was just scrolling online and I'd heard of Kundalini Yoga, but I'd never really explored it. And I saw it and I went to an online class. And I loved it. And so I just began practicing with a very famous teacher called Guru Jagat, who then became my guru. Unfortunately, she's no more. She passed away, I think, a year and a half or 2 years ago. I began practicing with her. And I noticed in about 40 to 60 days' time, my weight began to drop off. My hormones became balanced. My insulin levels came down. My brain fog, my mild depression began to go away. And I didn't touch a medication.
Is it?
Yeah, I didn't touch a medication. But I was very, very, very committed. So when I say 40 days, I don't mean 39 days. Right? So I did it. I said, let me do a 40-day challenge because you'll see a lot of Kundalini yoga teachers saying 40-day challenge. We say that for a reason because your body needs 40 days to rewire itself.
Okay.
Right?
How long? Like in a 40 days? So how many hours per day?
You don't need to do much. 45 minutes at the most.
Okay.
So my Kundalini yoga classes are with the meditation, with the energy work. I've developed a method called Kundalini Plus with a Q, not with a K, because I've combined it with somatic work, meditations, and Satipanya. So in a 1 hour class that I do in the mornings, students will get everything they need to set up their day. They're getting a physical workout, a mental workout, an emotional workout, and a coaching practice.
Okay.
So as a multifunctional therapist, I'm doing everything in just 1 hour. So I often tell my students, if you don't have 1 hour for yourself in a day,
Very difficult.
you can complete the sentence, right?
Yeah.
So because we're always working on other people's agendas. I'm working for this company. I am doing this for my husband. I am doing this for my child. So then you're always going to be in a state of less than. And when you're in a state of less than, you start treating yourself less than, isn't it?
Correct.
So if you love yourself and if you put yourself first, then you're there for everybody else because you're happy.
Correct.
That's the main thing. You are happy you completed your workout. You're happy you did your meditation. You're happy you did a great job at the office. So when you're happy, you can contribute. When you're constantly feeling tired, lonely, lethargic, you have angst, guilt, regret, then even your relationships will be full of that energy, like because like attracts like. So yoga is a very, very powerful way to examine yourself. So there are many definitions of yoga. Patanjali has a definition. Patabi Joyce has a definition. Iyengar, BKS Iyengarji has a definition. I don't have a definition because all their definitions are enough. Okay, you can go, everybody can go online and read all their definitions. I just think yoga is an experience. You can't study yoga in a book. You can read, definitely. But I wouldn't tell people read about yoga and then decide if it's for you. Because it's like looking at a mango on the table and deciding, should I eat it based on looking at it? But if somebody gave you a mango to taste, you would be like, wow, give me another one. So yoga has to be experienced and experienced through you. So whether you do 1 minute of just pranayam or whether you do a full 45-minute class, the choice is yours. I don't think any teacher or any person has the right to tell you what to do in your life. You are the captain of your own ship.
True.
So why don't give your agency to somebody else? So even in my Kundalini yoga classes, I will tell students, this is what I'm offering you. Choose to accept it or reject it. The choice is yours.
Correct.
So to answer your question, just start.
Okay. So we see that in the today's world, like a lot of yoga practices are there, like Ashtanga yoga, Hatha yoga, Kundalini awakening that you mentioned, and the many more that you mentioned. So how would someone choose that which one is for me? Which one I really need to practice? And is it with the experimentation shall we try, or there are some steps to identify or analyze it that this will work for me?
Nice question. So yes, there are many different kinds of yoga, and that was because there were many disciples of Patanjali and they all branched off to teach yoga the way their gurus taught them yoga. It's very simple. You know, the Buddha would teach the same thing in different ways to different audiences based on the capacity of the audience to understand and implement. So there are even instances where he would tell people, it's okay to rob. It's shocking, right? But if you read the scriptures further, there was a reason he said that. I'm not saying he actually said that. I'm just paraphrasing. But there were many things that he said that were shocking. So what I'm trying to say is every yoga may not be the right method for every person. So some people want to do a slow practice, Hatha yoga. Some people want to do a really vigorous practice like, lots of Surya Namaskars, lots of Ashtanga flows, Ashtanga yoga. So know what you want. Now, if you want an experience on the physical, mental, emotional, psychological, subconscious level, Kundalini yoga. Because in Kundalini yoga, we're not focusing so much on doing poses or asanas. Like Marichasana, which is a very difficult set of asanas. You need to be super flexible, to do those, which are very prevalent in Ashtanga yoga. Okay. What we are doing in Kundalini yoga is we're starting to fall in love with ourselves.
Okay.
And the only way you can start to fall in love with yourself is if you go within. So you're not sitting in the yoga class looking at everybody and what everybody is doing and comparing yourself to them. Because this happens in a lot of yoga. Arey, Rakhi can do a headstand. I'm doing yoga for 3 months. I can't lift my right leg. She's standing on her head. Now, comparison. So there's no use of doing yoga. Yoga should be like, Iyengar ji said, it's a union of yourself with the universe. But not just the body. Yourself as a full being potential. So you're a spiritual being having a human experience in this life.
Okay.
That means the body is only a vehicle. So what are we really working on? The soul, the mind. We are trying to remove all those, subtle karmas, from the Sukshma Sharir. We're trying to remove them, to dissipate them. So choose whatever yoga you want. I can't tell you which is the best, but you have to devote some time. So understand what is my goal of doing yoga and then choose a practice.
Got it. So in today's life, we see that everyone is busy working for others, but we don't get time to work on ourselves. It's very difficult even for me. I'm living in a Bangalore city, working in a corporate, and it's difficult for me to be consistent in doing yoga. I want to do yoga, but I'm not that consistent. So I want to understand why we really need to take this very seriously in today's world and what impact it can create.
So like I was mentioning a little bit earlier, we are always working on other people's agendas. And we forget that we have agency over our own life. So I also live in Bangalore. So I completely relate. And of course, I think you forgot to mention the traffic.
Yeah.
Which is a great source of stress for people.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of my one-to-one clients and all my cohorts, groups, everything online. Because people say to me, we come for the yoga class and on the way back, we are stressed. Or we come for therapy and on the way back, we are stressed. So there are triggers all around us. So you're very right. But again, I'm going to reiterate, Rakhi, that you have to love yourself and understand that no one is going to be there for you when you need help. Think about it. when things are going well in life, you're happy, you're drinking, you're smoking, you're in a pub, you're dancing, you have 10 different people who want to date you. I'm talking about the youth of today, right?
True.
But the moment you fall ill, there are some people who even refuse to pick up your call. This is what happened to me when my father got cancer. I emptied my entire phone book out of more than 500 numbers. Because all those people knew me as Avril the entertainer. Avril, oh, she's we'll have such fun with her. And I didn't intend to ask anybody for money. But they thought, oh, cancer is an expensive disease, so she's going to ask for money. So I just wanted to have a coffee with someone. No one was there. That's when I realized that at the end of the day, Avril, you come alone, you go alone. And when you're at your lowest, no one wants to be associated with you. Why? Because energy permeates from one person to another. If I'm feeling low, you'll feel low in 2 seconds. Because my energy is affecting you. But if I'm happy and my energy is stronger than yours, you'll start feeling happy. So we have to understand something very carefully, that if you don't have even 10 minutes for yourself in a day, then you are living for other people. And that's always going to be then outsourced. You're outsourcing your happiness to others. So then you look at others to make you happy. You look at others to give you advice, others to keep you healthy. And is that sustainable? That's not sustainable. Because tomorrow, if the company, God forbid, if someone's company wants to lay them off, what happens? That's why people have resentment, because, oh, I gave this company so many years of my life. Haven't you heard that so often?
Yeah. So,
And they just let me go. They just dumped me. Or my boyfriend, I was living with him for so long, and then he just found another girl. Because you didn't look at, see, when you're aware, Raki, when you do 2 minutes of pranayama a day, just focus on your breathing. I'll show you at some point. Where you just focus on your breathing and you keep bringing your mind back to your breath. You will start to notice each thought. And each thought will link to an emotion. And each emotion will then tell you how you're feeling in your body. And that sensation will tell you, am I happy? Or am I not happy? And then you can further investigate. So it all starts with just 2 minutes. I do something very popular in corporates and in my cohorts called micro meditation. So people have this misconception, chant Om, sit on your yoga cushion, chant, do lots of, meditation for 1-2 hours. No. A micro meditation is just 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So who doesn't have 2 minutes or 3 minutes?
everyone.
So start there.
So I think yoga is having a great impact in reverse aging. So can you tell us more about that? How does it happen? How does scientifically proven and how it works?
There are many things that people do for age reversal, and I'm very open about it. So there could be many things that they are doing besides yoga for age reversal, but definitely internally, it will definitely reverse your age. So we're not talking about just the external form. We're talking about the energy levels, the vitality levels. We're talking about many things, the way you think. Even your thinking has to be young, energetic, effervescent. You can't have this old mindset, this very defeated mindset. So yoga can really put you in touch with yourself. Remember, individual consciousness with divine consciousness. Individual consciousness merging with universal consciousness. So then you understand that the entire universe is within you. All of Brahmand is within you. You are stardust. You are made up of 5 tattvas. Those same 5 tattvas are there in the universe. So you're an extension of the divine. You're an extension of this universe. So everything in the universe, when it's pure, it lasts. But when there is any kind of impurity, it starts degrading. It's the same thing with the human body, the mind and the emotions. And yoga keeps you in a pure state. Because what yoga does is, it gives you agency over yourself. So everything in the universe, when it's pure, it lasts. But when there is any kind of impurity, it starts degrading. It's the same thing with the human body, the mind and the emotions. And yoga keeps you in a pure state. Because what yoga does is, it gives you agency over yourself. My mind is not controlling me. I am in control of my mind with love and with compassion. And my body is now cooperating with my mind, because we have 10 bodies. So I don't know whether you know this, but in yoga, and at least in Kundalini yoga, we emphasize on 10 bodies. So we have one physical body, 3 mental bodies, and 6 energy bodies.
Is it? This is something new.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a positive mind, we have a negative mind, we have a neutral mind. So the positive mind is always very optimistic. The negative mind is always very pessimistic. And the neutral mind brings them together. So it's always good to be in a neutral mind. So you don't get carried away by success or you don't get defeated by failure. You have the agency that I can do anything and everything. So if I'm down, I can come up. If I'm up, I will definitely go down at some point. So you're very realistic. And then we have the subtle bodies, the soul body, the pranic body, the radiant body, the auric field. So these are the 6 energy bodies. And you can measure these bodies using Kirlian photography, using the device like what I'm wearing, frequency devices. You can measure them. Even as a pranic healer, I can measure someone's auric field by just scanning their auric field.
Okay.
You can measure people's energy. So if you what you can measure, then what you can observe and measure, then you can track it.
Correct.
So yoga will, what it will do is, especially Kundalini yoga, it works very fast because it aligns all these 10 bodies. So in Kundalini yoga, we say a complete person who is mentally balanced, emotionally stable, physically healthy, psychologically strong, compassionate in their relationships, and who is wealthy. Money is an energy. So, there is no use being spiritual and poor. So when you have all of this, means all your 10 bodies are in alignment. So all our kriyas are for the simple benefit of aligning a person's 10 bodies. When your 10 bodies are aligned, you become magnetic. You become like, literally you say something and the universe gives it to you. So that's the aim of doing this practice. So to answer your question about aging, definitely it will help you with aging. But again, it requires much more than just doing poses. It requires the pranayama, it requires because there are 8 limbs of yoga. All of them need to be worked on simultaneously.
I listened to a lot of my friends who said that they are trying the chakra healing when they take the session, but it doesn't work that much. So what is exactly the chakra healing? How does it heal us? And when do we come to know that it is really working?
There are many ways to heal chakras. So I'm not too sure what your friends were referencing when they said we tried chakra healing and it wasn't that effective. So there are a couple of things, and again, I'm very honest and I like to put things on the table so that people can analyze for themselves. So probably what I'm about to say may not sit well with everybody. So caveat. Okay. I've been a pranic healer and I had the good fortune of studying with Grandmaster Choa Koksvi, who's the founder of pranic healing, when I was a bacha. I've been doing pranic healing now for more than 22 years on myself and other people all over the world. Reiki is one of the other things that people do. Lama Fera. There are many things, right? Somatic. Okay, so Rakhi, I'm not too sure what kind of healing modalities your friends have done for chakra healing, because there are many. And there are many reasons as to why they don't work. And I'd like to lay out everything on the table today because I'd like to speak from an honest place, because then people can take what serves them. I don't want to be biased because I'm a healer. I want to be honest about the drawbacks of healing also. Okay, I want to be honest about it. So now we have to understand that everything is working on a frequency. Whether you're doing Reiki, pranic healing, Lama Fera, somatic, whatever you're doing, everything is working on a frequency. Every thought, every word, every emotion, every action, every interaction is got a frequency. So the frequency of cancer is a frequency. The frequency of a liver cirrhosis is a frequency. The frequency of depression, you understood? So every chakra in the body, starting from the Mooladhara, going up to the Sahasrara, and we have an 8th chakra in the auric field, which people don't talk about, which is your antenna to the 5th dimension. Okay? So now let's keep it simple. Every chakra has a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological function. It's not just only one, it's all of them. Now, when you go to a person for healing, if you go to a pranic healer or a Reiki person for healing, or you do it, it's called remote healing, distant healing. I've healed people sitting in Houston, Texas. Because energy can transfer from here to anywhere. It can go through all mediums. Think about it. The law of attraction is aligning your energy with the BMW that you want. Where is the BMW? It's not in the it's not in 3D dimension. It's in the fourth or fifth dimension. But it's aligning your energy, so somehow you manifest it if you follow those steps involved. So now if you go, supposing you came to me for healing. So what am I? I'm a medium. I don't have any superpowers. I'm an ordinary human being. Very important to remember. I'm a medium. The healing is a frequency. So you want to cure a chronic migraine. You take healing from Avril because she is a certified pranic healer to cure migraine. So what am I going to do as a healer? Using different, I can do it with crystals, I can do it with colors, all with my hands or with crystals. What am I doing? I'm channeling the energy through different chakras of my body to come up with the frequency for you. So the energy is coming in from the universe, which is the healing energy, God energy, whatever you call it. I'm channeling it and now I'm sending it to you. So think about that very carefully. If I take a pure glass of water and I pour it through a dirty pipe, the water is energy. The pipe is me. What will be the end result? Dirty water?
Dirty water.
But it was pure. If the Reiki healer or the pranic healer or the Lama Fera healer has even one bad thought or drinks or smokes or has many sexual partners or doesn't have good mental health, they themselves are depressed or they had a fight with their spouse, what is their energy?
Negative.
Negative. Keeping it simple, positive, negative, good answer. So it's negative. Now when they are going to send you healing, what is coming to you?
Negative.
Maybe a little bit positive because now Avril has the intention to heal you. She doesn't want to harm you. But what can Avril do? बेचारी क्या कर सकती है? क्योंकि अभी she only has got so much of trauma. So what she has, she will give. So it's very important, number one, to know who are you going to healing from? Because I can say I'm a pranic healer. Have you seen my certificate? How many hours? Have you seen testimonials? Have you taken one session and experienced it? Or you just signed up for 30 sessions and paid 1 lakh? Think about it. People just want to offload things because they can't do it. So out of desperation, they just find the first pranic healer on Instagram. Oh, and she could have called her relative to give a testimonial. Understand who you're working with. The second thing is be patient. If you've had a migraine for 10 years, don't expect it to go in one session. That you're asking for too much. So be consistent. So healing has to be done at least 3 times a week by the pranic healer, right? Or by the Reiki healer, whoever it is. Now there's another modality of healing called frequency healing, which is also a way of healing. And I'm wearing this device over here, which is a frequency healing device. Now, what is the beauty of this device and why? So I also do quantum healing, which we haven't spoken about, so I can answer some questions. So now there's another mode of healing, which is called quantum frequency therapy. Now in this therapy, we just cut off the middleman. So there is no healer here. So, for example, if you came to me for healing, Avril is not going to heal you. The frequency device is going to heal you. So, now you have a migraine. It's going to give you the frequency for anti-migraine. So, it doesn't depend upon whether the healer has a headache or whether she's had a fight with her husband. It doesn't matter. The frequency is independent of a middleman. So, think about that. Now, you're going to get 100% result. Because we've seen testimonials of people, including me, I used to suffer from chronic migraines. And when a healer is sick, she can't heal herself.
Okay.
How can I? If I have a migraine, how can I heal myself? Yeah, it's not possible. So then when I discovered quantum frequency, it just blew my mind because within 20 minutes, my migraine was gone.
Really?
Within 20 minutes. So when we do your aura analysis, like if you would like, I can do it for you. When you do your aura analysis, you can see it there. It'll tell you which chakra is blocked, why it's blocked, how it's blocked, when it got blocked. And it's 99.99999% accurate. I've done more than 300 aura readings and till today only one person said that no, it's not accurate and he had serious mental health issues. So he didn't want to admit. And he was a coach, a certified coach. So when a coach looks at it, the ego kicks in. So we have to also understand that nobody is above God. So when you look at your analysis, you have to understand that I'm also a flawed human being. I'm not enlightened. So whatever comes up, let me analyze it. Let me see, ye sach hai ki nahi? Don't just dismiss it. So when you go to a healer, they'll also tell you, no, there is some deep trauma in your family. Were you sexually abused? Now, if you were, you're not going to tell the first person, ha, I was. Chacha ne kiya. It's not possible. You'll be like, no, I don't know. I don't think, no. Because your ego wants to protect you. These are protection mechanisms, right? Because what is the fear? I'll be judged. So we have to be very circumspect with these things. But frequency therapy is taking the world by storm because you're not dependent on a healer. Even if you came to me for distant healing and you didn't have a device, because you can buy this, even if you didn't have a device, you're still getting the healing without me interfering, because I'm not doing anything. I've taken your analysis, fed it into the system, and now the device is programmed to send you healing at whatever time of the day you want it.
Okay, remotely also.
Remotely, yeah.
Okay.
I send healing on this device to 25 people a day for 1 hour per day. And yesterday a person started and she said, in 1 day I'm feeling better. I don't know what's happening, and she's a pranic healer. And she is telling me, because we did our pranic healing course together, and she said, in 1 day, I'm feeling so much better. My mind is so calm. Even though there's chaos in my home, I'm just not affected by it. I'm so calm because we do Bach flower remedies, we do courage remedies, we do mental stress remedies. So we analyze you and we just tell you what you need and you just do it. So healing has become so easy, but then you need to put effort.
What efforts I have to put, like if you give me some exercises or something, or
so it depends. So if you're going to a person for manual healing, so let's distinguish it. So all healing is healing. All is based in energy. Okay, some are recognized by science, some are not. Frequency therapy is recognized by science. It's approved by the FDA and the European Council. It's approved in 55 countries. But other modalities, Lama, Fera, somatic, this thing, that thing, fascial release, they are very, very astute, but they are not recognized. So we would call them manual healing, because you have to sit, you have to do the healing. It's analog. You know, in the olden days, you had analog, right? So it's analog healing. The healer's putting in time. The other person to receive the healing has to be still, has to lie down. So there's a lot of time involved. But for remote healing with a frequency device, you don't have to do anything. Even if I give you distant healing starting from tomorrow, you can be having coffee with your friends in Starbucks. The healing will still come to you.
Okay.
You don't need to be lying down, because there is no middleman. Why do people need to sit and receive when a person is sending them healing? Because my body has a limitation. I'm sending the healing through my body. If you keep moving around, my body can't scan you everywhere. Because it's a dense, gross mechanism, right? But a frequency is free to fly through anywhere. It can go anywhere, a frequency. It's not bound by time, space, reality. But my body in this 3D reality as a gross structure is bound by time, space. So I can't chase you. So that's why I say sit. Open your heart. Receive. But it's not that with frequency. You just clip it on if you have it and do whatever you want. Or if you don't have it, you just take the healing at whatever time and you'll feel better, because people come back and tell, I've got hundreds of testimonials of people on social media saying that, you know, I after 2 hours, I felt better. After 1 week, my life changed. This happened.
But I'm confused, like we'll start the device and what next? What happens next in that? Do you discuss with me? Do you understand me?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the aura analysis takes about an hour.
Okay.
Where we sit on a Zoom call, distant, or we sit in person, and I take your frequency. Now, every person has a thumbprint, right? So every person has a frequency, which is like your standard frequency. So your brother, your mother won't have the same frequency. You, out of 8 billion people on this planet, you will have only that frequency.
Is it?
It's like a thumbprint.
Okay.
Nobody else has your thumbprint, right? Even if you have an identical twin, they also won't have your thumbprint.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Got it? Now we take that frequency, we feed it into the device. Now the device is a very intelligent device. It's driven by AI, but it's got a server where there are 5 million frequencies that are stored in that server. So now it will pick up the frequencies.
Okay.
It's got mental health frequency, physical disease frequencies, emotional frequencies, both good and not so good. Okay? Now a frequency recognizes another frequency. It doesn't need to be introduced. It's a frequency. So the like attracts like. So now the frequencies are taken. We do your analysis. Okay, there's a certain way to do it. And I've captured now you with your analysis with Kirlian photography. Kirlian photography is a special photography that measures your aura.
Okay.
It's available anywhere,
Okay.
but it's inbuilt into the device. So now you see your aura. You can literally see your aura around you, all the different colors of the chakras. And there is a report given in great detail as to what blocks are experienced in which chakra. Are they depleted? Are they overactive? Are they underactive? Why are you not able to manifest your goals? What is blocking you? How are your, so it's basically like a completely no holes barred report on your mental, emotional, physical, psychological and abundance, your money, energy state. Now we will decide, if you were doing it remotely, I would decide to give you healing for your pranic body, for your chakras, because the chakras control everything, right? So we're now aligning the chakras. So after a few days, you will start to feel better. Then we give you mental health programs. You will start to feel lighter. You can think better. We give you sleep programs. You sleep better. So again, it's an experience. And we tell people maintain a journal. On day 1, on a scale of 1 to 10, how was I feeling mentally, physically, emotionally? That's the effort I'm talking about. Because you can't measure what you don't track.
Correct.
Even when you're doing a diet, you're tracking it. When you're going to the gym, you're tracking it. So don't you think you should be tracking yourself as a person? But if you were to say invest in a device and you have your own device, then the whole ball game changes, because now it will create a schedule for you and tell you which programs you can take for arthritis, which programs you can take for kidney stones. So we have seen people with tumors come out of it. People with cancers come out of
Coming out of the
from stage 3 cancer to stage 0.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have seen people with autoimmune completely get cured. People with suicidal tendencies, people with addictions get completely cured. Now, we are not saying it's the frequency that's curing you. No. What we are saying is when your body has the right frequency, it heals. So if you fall down and you hurt yourself, are you really nurturing it the whole day? You may put some Dettol on it, and if the wound is too big, you'll put some Neosporin, some cream, and you'll just put a Band-Aid. But the healing is happening. Why is the healing happening? Because the body is now aligning all the cells at a particular frequency to heal. Right?
Correct.
So you're not healing.
Body.
The body is healing.
Yeah.
So in frequency medicine, we say when the cells are vibrating at a particular millivoltage, because we measure cell voltage in millivolts, like you measure water in liters. When the cells are vibrating at a certain voltage, they automatically heal. That's how healing happens.
Okay.
So how does disease happen? When the body is out of alignment and it is gone below that voltage, the cells start to mutate. And when mutation starts happening, you'll get a cold, you'll get fever, flu, cancer, autoimmune disorders. So I'm just giving you the entire trajectory. Everything that we use, whether it's yoga, meditation, energy healing, frequency healing, anything, what is it doing? It's aligning your frequency. Everything is just an alignment of frequency. Even a medicine you take is aligning your frequency. But unfortunately, allopathic medicine doesn't work on the root cause. It's working on a symptom. So when I give you a migraine medication, it's not curing the root cause of your migraine. It's numbing the neural pathways which are causing you pain. Because if it was curing the root, why will you get a migraine again and again?
Correct.
But when you do healing through frequency, it's going to the root cause. Because it's allowing the body a chance to heal itself.
Got it. So I would like to share one of the experiences which happened with my mom. Like she was having the liver chronic disease in before COVID. I think she got a jaundice in August, and in the November, December that they said that you need to do a liver transplant. But at that same time, my mom started practicing like pranayama, yogas and all. and I saw the result over there. Like within a month, her levels were decreased, like which were not possible by the allopathy. Doctors were suggesting the transplant, but it got cancelled. Parallelly, homeopathic treatment was also going on. Nitin Hain was a doctor, but I don't know what really worked. But I saw that this worked over there, and till today, like she's doing the from that till now, she's practicing the yoga, pranayam, everything, and her sugar levels, her like all the BP levels, all are normal. Like from there, I got to know that yeah, this is a real experience I can share with all my audience, and this is really impacting.
Yeah, so again, what I'm noticing in your story is, first of all, I mean, congratulations to your mother.
Yeah.
Secondly, what I'm noticing in your story is what I mentioned earlier, consistency
Because that's very important. Yeah.
and belief.
Yeah.
Even if you do something consistently but you don't have belief, you're sabotaging yourself.
Yeah.
So she had the belief that I will heal myself, my body will heal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when she started doing these mindful practices, pranayama, different kinds of, whatever she was doing in terms of controlling her mind, nourishing her body with sattvic food, taking homeopathy, everything was a frequency, right? Homeopathy also has a frequency in the medicine. Pranayama changes your frequency.
True.
So everything is a frequency. So this entire universe is just a game of frequency. So Nikola Tesla famously once said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of frequency, energy, and vibration.
Okay.
Right? So everything in life is a frequency.
Got it. Yeah.
We haven't spoken about in terms of self-healing or healing with with the help of another person, and it's called fascia release. So I don't know how many people have heard of fascia release. Fascia release depends upon how you pronounce it. So what is fascia? Fascia is an organ. It's the largest organ in your body, which people don't talk about. So when the sperm and ovary, fertilize, the first thing that is formed is the fascia. And the fascia then becomes the heart and the intestines,
Okay.
the brain and the intestines. So when they say that your gut is your second brain, it's actually your first brain also. It's the same fascia which makes your brain and makes your intestines, which is why your emotions are in your intestines. And a lot of times you take gut. They say, I took a gut decision.
Yeah.
Right? So the fascia wraps around it looks like cellophane paper.
Okay.
And it's a very thin filament. It wraps around every single bone, ligament, joint, muscle, artery, vein. Okay? It's under the skin. It wraps around everything. So when you correct the fascia in the body, automatically any kind of mental, physical or emotional trauma that's there gets released. So people who have chronic back pain, people who have been maybe abused as children, people who have any kind of disease in the body, people who have uneven hips, so people who they have chronic pain, autoimmune disorders, they can't breathe, anything, any ailment you can think of, which is mental or emotional or physical, can be really, really corrected with fascia release. So I've been learning fascia release for the last 1 year with a therapist, a fascia release therapist, and now I do it with people. So I'm doing a live yoga event also, in Bangalore, and I'll be doing fascia release with people. So that is nothing else but a part of somatic therapy. Somatic means body. So we're working with the body to release trauma stored in the body. Because any trauma that you've experienced in your life, even somebody calling you when we were kids and we used to play, I don't know about your generation, but when we were kids and we used to play, kids used to insult each other.
Okay.
Tu choti hai, tu moti hai, e lambu, e thingu. These were like very innocent things, but it sticks with you for life. So once somebody calls you moti, 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 for the rest of your life, you're traumatized by it. Even if you're thin, you still think you're fat.
Sure.
That leads to a body dysmorphia disorder.
Okay.
If you're too tall, you always will shrug your shoulders. People want to be tall. But then tall people, because they have a complex, in Bombay, like the kids used to say, hey, lambu. And you could see the person just shrinking. Now the person will end up with back issues. Or he will now try to underplay himself. So he may not even communicate properly. So one small micro trauma can lead to many, many, many traumas later on in life. Because there's a saying in English, the body keeps score. Like your mind may forget because we are thinking 70,000 thoughts a day. So your mind may forget. There's the recency effect in the mind, right? It remembers what happened most recently, right? Because if I ask you, what did you eat for breakfast last Tuesday? The first thing your mind will do is it'll try to trace back from today. And somewhere along the way, it'll lose track.
Correct.
So it's called the recency effect. But the body doesn't have recency effect. It has eternal effect.
True.
From the time you're born till the time you die, everything is stored in the body. So there are different therapies like fascial release, cellular therapy release. Because if a trauma happens in one cell of the body, it's recorded by all the other 53 trillion cells. Because everybody is working as a group, right? Like ants, they all work in a group. So with fascia release, it's very, 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 very effective for any kind of a person who has got deep trauma that even yoga is not helping them with, that even, Reiki or pranic healing is not helping them with. Because the trauma is locked so severely in the body that it's like this, it's not willing to let go. So when we move the body in certain ways and when we use certain breaths, there are certain breathing techniques which we use. We use a spinal pelvic lock. We use stage breaths. We use different kinds of pranayama. Then with the combination of these things, but if you practice fascia release for maybe 15 minutes a day, it really, within 28 days, the body resets itself.
Okay.
It's quite magical. And then we do the same thing. It's called organ release. It comes under fascia release, but we do organ release. So we bless each organ because did you know that each organ stores emotions?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So each organ in your body stores emotions. Your liver stores anger or resentment and resentment. Your stomach stores anxiety. Your intestine stores emotional stress. Your lungs store sadness. Your kidneys store fear. Right? Your heart stores stress. Every time people say heart attack, oh, he had stress. It's not an exaggeration. He really had stress. So the heart gave up. Because the heart is a muscle. You push a muscle to its limit, it will collapse. Right? So each organ is storing emotion, negative or positive emotion. So we do an organ release. We release the organs using our fingers. We release them. There's a certain way to move the organs. So I do this every single day. So unfortunately, for most people, they don't have as much time as me because I work on my own time. But for a person like myself, because I work with so many people, my self-care routine is 3 hours.
Okay.
But I'm lucky I have that privilege because this is what I chose to do.
Correct.
Right? But then the self-care, I may not want to do an organ release, but I do it. We even do a fascia release for the face. It gives you an instant facelift.
Okay.
We turn the fascia in the face in different ways using our hands. We literally squeeze the skull bones. We squeeze the cheekbones. We literally move to move the fascia. When you move the fascia, the lymph starts to drain. So puffy eyelids, puffy cheeks, extra fat, it all starts to drain through the lymph. So it's called a fascia facelift. I do it every day in the morning.
Okay.
To give myself more space because as you grow older, everything is falling down. When you do a facelift with fascia, the fascia gets tight. So it lifts everything up. So if you take a picture of yourself when you do these therapies, day 1 and day 28, you can see people's bodies, faces literally changing. Because like I keep saying, if you don't track, you can't measure. So I tell people, journal and track. On day 1, what am I feeling? On day 5, what was I feeling? So another thing I do in Kundalini Yoga is, it's a practice where we close our eyes. It's called one of the limbs of yogas, pratyahara, sense withdrawal. When you close your eyes, because we take in the world through our eyes. See, a deaf person, a blind person can't take in the world through his eyes. So his ears, his sense of taste, his nose, his sense of touch, he can touch you and say, oh, Rakhi.
Correct.
But we are lazy. So 80% of our world is taken in through our eyes. That's why we don't hear properly. Oh, what did you say? But if I was blind, I would listen to every word.
Sure.
Right? Even smell. We get, our sense of smell gets numb. Our sense of taste, we eat the same food every day because we dal chawal hai, so you know the taste. You've already anticipated the taste. So sometimes I sit with my eyes closed and I eat. You can taste the food better. You can try it. Anybody who's watching, try it. Close your eyes and eat your food. You'll appreciate simple dal chawal much better. Because now you're engaging your senses. So when we do pratyahara, we close our eyes and we practice the entire class with our eyes closed. And I keep asking people, which the audience also can do, ask yourself 3 questions every time you feel a certain way. It could be negative or positive.
Okay.
People only think about, what should I do when I'm negative? What should you do when you're positive? Have you ever thought about that? Because people take it for granted. No, masti karenge. I'm feeling good, But ask yourself these 3 questions always. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? How am I acting?
Okay.
What sensations am I experiencing in the body? Because your body is constantly talking to you. Your mind is constantly talking to you. Your heart is constantly, but we don't listen. Because we're always stuck to our phones or we're stuck to people. We get addicted to the outside stimulus. But I tell people, if you want to have an addiction to yourself. Be addicted to your happiness. Be addicted to your self-growth. Because then you're benefiting yourself and other people.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. So you mentioned about the consistency earlier. So I think it is very difficult to be consistent. So what do you suggest to audience who want to be consistent? So sometimes it's online yoga, group yoga.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't need any mentor. They practice it themselves. So what do you suggest them to be consistent? How it is possible in today's world?
Okay. So I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. You want to start a yoga practice or you want to start, say, a self-care practice. It could be anything.
True.
Why? If you don't know your why, you won't be consistent.
Okay.
The reason that, like you referenced your mother, the reason she was consistent is because she had a why. I don't want to have a transplant.
Correct.
So that why was so strong that she would sacrifice sleep also to do her pranayam. Isn't it?
True.
Right? She would sacrifice going out to a wedding. No, the food there will be unhealthy. My liver is affected. I will eat at home. There is sacrifice involved in everything. But why people are not consistent is because they don't know their why. So if people in my Conscious Creators Academy, the first thing when I do is when they come into the academy, I say, what is your why? And there's an exercise that I do with people, which I can share a PDF with you as my way of giving back. It's called the 7 levels deep exercise. Now, the 7 levels deep exercise is, supposing now your mother asked, why? The first thing is, I don't want a transplant. Why don't you want a transplant? Because I don't want someone else's liver or because it's too expensive. Why do you want to heal on your own? So you ask those why 7 times. You'll get to the core.
Yeah.
So even a simple, I want to lose 10 kilos, when you ask why, it could be something as deep as, I have purpose in life and I want to live longer. You started off with, I want to wear skinny jeans, but you landed up at, I want purpose, so I don't want to die without fulfilling my purpose. Can you see how deep it goes? So consistency will only happen when you have your big why. Once people know their why, they're intelligent. We are all blessed with innate intelligence. You'll decide whatever path is for you. You want to do healing, do it. You want to do yoga, do it. You want to do, and then you'll be consistent, because when you start doing a self-care, a self-practice to align your frequency, you get so addicted to that frequency, you don't want to feel any other way except good. You will start avoiding situations, people, automatically people will start moving away from you that you're not in sync with. Situations will start unraveling so that, you get more success, because the universe, I always say, will conspire to help you. Now, when I say conspire to help you, if you're vibrating at the frequency of addiction, the universe will conspire to help you. So you become more addicted.
Correct.
So a drug addict gets more addicted to drugs because the universe is conspiring to help him because he needs a fix. So you see how it works. There is no no in the universe.
Correct.
There is only yes.
Yeah.
Tathastu. Right? In India, we say Tathastu. Yeah. Whatever you want, I am here. Take it.
Got it. If someone got consistent and if they want to pursue it as a career, so what could be the way that how they can find the right mentor for them? And also what are the, as a career, if we choose this, what are the certifications available in the market? What we should choose?
I may not know everything in terms of certifications and all because I don't know everything, but I'll tell you from my own experience. So it's very important, number one, if you want to choose let's take it step by step. So you want to be a yoga trainer, okay? Because yoga training is a huge profession now, huge vocation.
Correct.
Everybody has 200 plus hours of yoga. Now, I've been to many yoga classes where the instructor has 200 plus hours of yoga but doesn't know anything about yoga because they're only focusing on the physical postures. So some yoga instructors are very, very flexible. They can do Mayurasana, they can do Bhujangasana. Great for them. That is number one. They're only concerned in physical postures. So they will now impart to their students only that. And not everybody is flexible. So students also are not benefited. So the first thing is understand the philosophy of yoga. Yoga has a philosophy. Understand the 8 limbs, yama, niyama, pranayama, asana. Understand the entire philosophy. Understand the essence of yoga. It's an inward journey through the vehicle of the body. It's not about the body. Yoga is not about the body. Body is a byproduct. It's about an inward journey through your subconscious mind and your emotional and mental bodies. And then the body will automatically align. So you see many large people also, very good yoga practitioners. They can do headstand, handstand, everything. Why? Because they have aligned the mind and the heart. Now the body is baya haath ka khel. So you don't need to have a sexy body to practice yoga. It's not about that. So number one is, what is your vocation to teach? Are you imparting a philosophy or are you imparting a quick fix? Now I'll take it a step into coaching. Same thing. You can get a Tony Robbins coaching, Jack Canfield coaching, Dr. D. Martini coaching. Now there is a Mitesh Khatri coaching. What is the credentials of these people?
Correct.
If you are in sync with their philosophy, take it. Then there are corporate people who will not entertain any other coaches unless they are ICF, PCC or ICF, MCC coaches. MCC is a master coach, PCC is a professional coach. Why? Because it's a standardized coaching. They are not giving you gyan through a person. They are giving you gyan through a system. And a system will always outweigh a person. Tomorrow, if there's some scandal about any of these people who I mentioned, all those coaches go for a toss. Why? Because the guy who you did the coaching with was found to be so-and-so. Some shady thing. And everybody who's certified in that guy's coaching goes for a toss. So when I was doing my coaching, I studied with Bob Proctor. I studied with From the Secret. I studied with Tony Robbins. But I never certified with them.
Okay.
Because I once attended a coaching cohort where this coach was talking about systems. And I was like, yeah, he's right. I want to be in a system. I don't want to be a chela. I want to be in a system.
Correct.
So I took my ICF PCC coaching, which is, believe me, the toughest coaching protocol on planet Earth. Because none of the others, you have to sit for an exam. They will give you you pay them 10 lakhs, they'll give you a certification. But for ICF, you have to pay them 10 lakhs and they will then certify you. They don't care about your money. You paid them because you got coached for 6 months. Every week, day in and day out, you have assignments. You have to sit for an examination. You have to do 500 coaching calls with people. You have to log those calls in. They can call those people to find out if you actually coach them. Then you'll have to give one of those calls to them. 10 people in the ICF in the USA will sit and mark you on 84 markers.
Okay.
Right? Now, it takes a lot. After I finished that coaching exam, I slept for a week.
Okay.
Because it was it's very fatiguing. So, I wanted to have a coaching system where I could coach a child, an addict, a corporate CEO, or a housewife. So, that's what I did. Now, when it comes to energy sciences, you need dedication, patience, compassion, understanding, empathy. But now I see a lot of healers, sign up for we will do a deal. Sign up, we'll do a deal, 30,000 for 1 month. I have nothing against 30,000. I love money. Okay.
Yeah.
Lakshmi is beautiful. Everybody loves Lakshmi. But is that the only thing? Where have you learned healing? Who taught you? Which guru have you gone to? So I studied with Grandmaster Choa Coxswain, the founder of Pranic Healing. That is a lineage. There are miracles performed in that community. Did it take me time? Of course. I've done healings with more than 20,000 people in the last so many years,
Oh my God.
including myself.
Mm-hmm.
So there is, see, that requires sadhana, dedication. It's not a quick fix.
Mm.
Nobody, and in all honesty, nobody can teach you to be a healer. It has to be within you.
Mm.
If you have compassion, non-judgment, patience, and a will to serve others, service, seva,
Mm.
only then you can be a healer. Otherwise, you can't.
Mm-hmm.
So why am I talking about this in detail? Because I don't want to just throw things on the table and then the audience will say, it sounded easy. I have nothing against easy.
Mm-hmm.
I use frequency therapy because it's easy, but it's effective.
Mm.
So you can choose an easy path, but is it effective for you and for your clients? Because if you're not serving people, then that's also a karmic load,
Correct.
right? Because you can escape everything in life, but you can't escape karma.
Correct.
Karma will find you wherever you are, whether in this life or the next.
Mm.
And we already have so many karmas we are working out. That's why we are sick.
Yeah.
So better keep karma happy.
Got it. So this yoga day, what key message you would like to give it to audience for yoga, for their health, for their nutrition?
My message throughout 365 days of the year is the same. Self-love is above all. And it's good to be selfish. When I say selfish, I'm not talking about taking from others. That's not what I'm saying. Love yourself, put yourself first. Self-care is the best care because when you are in a good space, you will be able to provide value to others. Your relationships will improve, your business will improve, your corporate life, everything will improve. So this yoga day, I would ask people to take a step and go within because you will never find answers outside. Because like we said, the entire universe is within you. So Lord Buddha used to say, everything lies within you, but yet we are looking out. And when you look out, you get confused. Especially today, there is so much to look at.
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, people see
And everybody is a guru.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody is a teacher. Everybody is a healer. Everybody is a god. And the biggest god that we are slaves to is money and fame. So I don't mind doing anything wrong in my life if I can get something. But this yoga day, go within and examine what is the purpose of my life. I am a full being potential. Can I discover myself through the vehicle of yoga? It's one road. Many roads are there. The road of yoga is deep, it's fulfilling, and it's very giving, and it's very forgiving because no one is judging you. And you learn not to judge yourself. So I think yoga is a beautiful journey of self-discovery. How to love myself in this body, in this life, with this brain, with this whatever, in this moment. Because haven't you seen a lot of people, when I lose 10 kilos, when I make 10 lakhs a month, so what are you waiting for? Tomorrow a bus runs over you, when is gone? Nobody knows when their last day on earth is, right? I don't. So shouldn't I be living happy in this moment? So yoga, when you go within, when you look at yourself within and say, there are many things that I would like to improve in my life, but in this moment, I'm awesome. I love myself. I'm not perfect, but nobody else is. And I'm not competing against other people. This is me. This is me. And so let me do this for myself. Let me take a journey inward for myself. And that will lead you to true happiness. Then when you're truly happy, you can enjoy your partner. You can enjoy your money. You can enjoy fill in the blank.
Got it. Thank you so much, Avril, for this wonderful, I think, question and answers, wonderful discussion. So now we'll move to the rapid fire round.
Wow. Okay.
So I'll also call it a guide us round, where I'll be asking you the short questions and I'll expect the short answers.
Sure.
Yeah. If someone is having like 2 minutes or 5 minutes dedicated to yoga every day, just they want to start with. So what is the one practice that you would suggest them?
So the first one I would suggest is mindfulness. So for 1 minute, just notice your mind without any judgment, without any blame, shame, guilt. Just sit and notice, what are my thoughts? What is my mental makeup? So that can be just 1 minute. The second thing is you can practice any kind of fierce breathing. Again, there are contraindications. So if you have any kind of ailments like blood pressure, diabetes, heart condition, consult your doctor. But any kind of fast, forceful breathing, Bhastrika, Kapala Bhati, any kind of that kind of breathing, fierce, belly in, belly out, fast, do that. And if you can lift your hands in the air and bring it down, so inhale up, exhale down, inhale up, exhale down. It starts the circulation in the body. And then it doesn't have to be a yogic practice, though you could do 3 rounds of Surya Namaskar, A and B, okay? Or you can just spot jog, So these 5 minutes will be complete and you're ready for your day.
That will be enough to see the effective result.
That would be enough to see the effectiveness, and do this continuously even for 2 weeks. You'll start getting energized and then you'll want to do more because your body is meant to move.
Okay, got it. If someone can't meditate, what's the easiest way to start training their mind if they're not stable?
So let's reverse engineer this. What is meditation? People think meditation is trying to calm my mind and have no thoughts, right? Absolutely wrong. Your mind cannot not think. That's why you have a brain. God's not going to give you a brain so that it can just have a holiday, right? So what are we trying to do? We're trying to still the mind. There's a difference between a thoughtless state, which you can reach once you reach samadhi, once you have many siddhis. If you're very accomplished, you can have a thoughtless state. But I have not reached that stage and I don't know anybody who has, in all humility. So what is the object of meditation? To calm the mind, to still the mind. So that monkey mind, which is monkey is jumping from one branch to another, 70,000 thoughts a day, just say, Shant. Whatever is happening, just slow it down. So again, just observe the mind. So just sit, think what you're thinking, feel what you're feeling, scratch if you want to scratch, do whatever you want, but just sit. Train your body to sit. Because nobody wants to sit, they want to move, they want to do, they want to jump. Train the body to sit. Like you train a puppy, think of yourself as a puppy. Train yourself. Sit. Relax. Calm. Let your mind do whatever it wants to do.
And observe.
One
breathing technique to immediately calm nerves before an interview or exam or any situation.
So there are many, but I'll keep it simple. It's something known as box breathing. You would have heard of it, box breathing. So you inhale for a certain count. So say 4. So you inhale for 4 counts, hold it for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts and suspend the breath out of the body for 4 counts. Now, while you're doing this, you can do something that we do in NLP. So I didn't mention that I also am an NLP level 1 trainer. You just hold your arms, opposite hands on the arms. And as you're doing this, you just soothe yourself. Okay. It's a psychological technique that we use because when you were a child, your mothers to always rub you like this. Remember? Just think about anybody, their mothers or their grandmothers, the first thing they'll do is rub them up and down. Or they hold them like this. So you can do this or you can just hold yourself and move side to side while doing the breathing. Immediately you will calm down.
Okay. What's your go-to practice to shift from low energy to high energy?
Using breath. So Bhastrika, Kapala Bhati, maybe doing Surya Namaskar, immediately shift your state. Movement will shift your state, even doing a Superman pose. Stand with your legs one or 2 feet apart, put your hands on your hips, stick your chest out, Superman pose. Immediately shift your state. And you can say an affirmation also. I love myself or I am the best, whatever. Even if you don't believe it, it's okay, lie to yourself. You will believe it one day, but just, change your state.
When I'm waking up, I have slept like for the 8 hours, but I'm still feeling exhausted. I'm still feeling low. So what's the quick fix that and why does that happen?
Okay. So again, we have to reverse engineer this. The reason you're feeling lethargic is because you went to bed with unconscious stress. So a quick fix for that would be you could either do a 5-minute meditation and you can journal your thoughts. So you're dumping your thoughts on paper. So you're not going to bed with them. The other thing is, I will link a Ho'oponopono meditation that you won't find anywhere else on YouTube that I learned from a Hawaiian healer. I'll link it in your show notes. Let people do, there are 3 rounds of it. It's about 20 minutes. But let them just do even 1 round, or even the audience who's listening, even if you do 1 round or 2 rounds, you can download it and listen to it. It will start to clear the subconscious garbage in the mind. When you listen to it, you'll feel better. And that will help you to take less subconscious stress to bed. And you'll wake up fresher. The other thing is, if you avoid blue light, screens in the night, your eyes will be more relaxed and you'll fall asleep faster. If you've done all this and you're still waking up lethargic, that means your body genuinely needs more sleep. Or your body is going through some kind of trauma that you need healing for. The body is giving you a message that I'm doing this, but still. But the chances are that 50% of your lethargy or your, I haven't slept enough will be gone if you do these two things before you sleep.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. What should one do immediately when feeling anxious or emotionally overwhelmed?
Okay. So the moment you are anxious or emotionally overwhelmed, you're projecting a fear into the future. Something that's not happened, right? False evidence appearing real.
True.
So the first thing you need to ask yourself is, so now immediately you're going into trauma, the first thing you need to do is self-soothe. So do this self-soothe, so you calm yourself down. Also move your eyes from right to right. So move your eyes like this. Right to left.
Okay.
Not up and down, right to left, left to right. Move it like this. Yeah. So immediately you can put your finger here and just move. Immediately you will calm down. Then you ask yourself one question. Is this really true? Because a fear is not true.
Very good.
It's a fear of the future. You don't have fear of the past. Do you? You have regret about the past.
Yeah, regret about that.
Or sadness or happiness. But you don't have fear. Ho gaya na? What is there to be fear? It's happened. But you're fearful about something that may happen in the future or may not happen in the future. So ask yourself, is this really true?
Your one daily ritual that you follow, that you believe that is energizing you.
The moment I wake up in the morning, first of all, I wake up with a mantra. I don't have this tring on my phone because it's very assaulting to my ears. So I want to wake up to a mantra. So I wake up to Gayatri mantra.
Okay.
Or I can change the mantra to another one. But I sleep to a mantra and wake up to a mantra.
Okay.
Okay. I love Hindu and Buddhist mantras. So they are downloaded on my phone. So I wake up to and sleep to a mantra. As soon as I wake up, I rock my body from side to side to bring energy into it. I tuck my knees into my chest. I hug myself and I say, I love you. Now it may seem like, what for? Like people, why I love you? Because you need to be validated by yourself. So I love you. So you say, I love you. And then you give gratitude for one thing or two things or three things.
Okay.
We're not talking about big things. I slept, I woke up, I could have died.
Yeah.
I have a pillow to rest my head. I have a quilt to cover myself. I have water near my table. So simple things.
Gratitude.
So my go-tos are love and gratitude. Those are my mantras.
Okay.
And then of course I will move on to the side of which nostril is working.
Okay.
So I do a lot of swara yoga. So depending upon the nostril, I'll activate my body on that side.
Okay. So you mentioned about the nostril. So I was just reading about this. Like, I think one is the right is Surya Nadi.
Yeah, and left is Chandra Nadi. Yeah.
So how does it work and how we can activate it, and for what purpose we should activate which one?
Okay, so that will require another podcast because
Okay.
it's a science in
Science.
itself.
Okay.
It's Shiva talking to Parvati. I'm just paraphrasing. It's a science which Lord Shiva told Lord Parvati for people who wanted instant results. See, even Shiva was thinking about instant gratification because he knew in Kali Yuga,
Correct.
people don't
will
have
ask
patience.
for this. Yeah.
So, because Krishna was talking to Arjun in the Mahabharata and advising him on how to live life. But everything was a long drawn out process and everything is, got a lot of work, lot of effort, lot of whatever. So, Parvati was thinking, but she was talking to her husband and saying, but what can we give people for instant gratification? And he taught her Swara Yoga.
Okay.
So for anything that's supposed to be sustained for a long amount of time, general rule of thumb, left.
Okay.
For anything that's an activity that's fast, that requires action, that requires brain functioning, right. So even when we manifest, the left side, the Ida and the Pingala, right? And the Shushumna Nadi. So the Ida is for manifestation in terms of visualization,
Okay.
creativity,
Okay.
coming up with an idea, but all in the mind. Vision boarding, doing your manifestation techniques,
Got it.
journaling, all that is all creation practices, female energy. But for manifestation, people don't manifest because they keep reading their vision board, keep saying affirmations, keep doing 3-cup method, 2-cup method, but they are not taking action. So then you need to take action on your goal. You need to go out and give your resume. You need to go and ask somebody out on a date. You need to start saving to make money. So action is required. So any active thing, you need to work on your right channel. But it's a science, so maybe in some point in the future we can talk, because it's very, very effective.
Got it. A food or drink you avoid because it disrupts your pranic balance or meditation.
Definitely alcohol and definitely red meat. Even if I go out, I won't touch any of these. And at home, I have a very set schedule. I don't eat after 6 or 7, and I fast 3 days a week.
3 days a week.
Every
Oh,
alternate
so-
day I fast.
So 24 hours or like 12 hours?
No, I don't do that kind of fasting. I do fasting just to give my body a break. So I will eat, natural foods, like I'll eat curd, I'll have some nuts, I'll have avocado. So certain foods, but very less of them throughout the day.
Okay.
So only, normally I would eat like a lot of food because I go to the gym, I work out, I do yoga. But on the other days, I want my body to realize that it's okay not to eat. But at the same time, for women who are in my phase of life, if you don't give your body any food for more than 8 hours, it will go into shock. It will start storing fat. So women after 40 in perimenopause can't do intermittent fasting for 18 hours and 20 hours and all, because it doesn't work.
Okay.
It doesn't work for women who are doing that kind of fasting.
Got it.
So you should be very mindful about who am I and what are my needs.
What works for
What works for you?
How to reset your system after a bad day, maybe physically or energetically?
Forgiveness.
Okay.
I just forgive myself and say, it's okay, you had a bad day, so what? Everybody fails. Everyone fails, and it's absolutely okay. So if you want to work, you can work. If you want to chill out and watch a movie, do that.
Okay.
If you want to eat a chocolate, do that. You're not doing it every day, but do what makes you happy in this moment, and you may need some release. You may need to give into an addiction. Within limit. I'm not saying go and shoot up, So we have to be circumspect about what we do.
Correct.
But forgiveness is the key. When you can forgive yourself for failure, for having a bad day, for things not going well, it's magical, because you're not taking it to sleep also. You're just letting it go.
Your evening routine to prepare the body for deep rest and recovery.
Okay. Like I said earlier, I don't work with any clients or do any work, even if they pay me a lot of money. I have refused clients, especially high-level CEOs, entrepreneurs, because they want to do therapy at 9 in the night. At 9 in the night, my body is getting ready to go to sleep. And I need to respect my body, my circadian rhythm. So after I eat at 6:30, I'll work a little bit. I walk, I'll work a little bit. My phone is almost, you can't see my phone screen. I'll almost put it to 1/3. So I'm struggling to see. I don't want my eyes to be affected. And then I start journaling in my mind. I do what I call, mental journaling,
Okay.
because I don't like writing.
Is it?
I don't like writing.
Okay.
Even though I've written a book, I've written a book and I wrote it in 21 days.
Okay.
I don't like writing and journaling just because you have to. I don't like rules. You must journal. No, I don't want to journal. So I talk into my phone, or I'll journal in my mind. I'll talk to myself, and I'll understand what went well today, what didn't go well today. And I'll instruct my mind to remember, because your body and your mind needs instruction.
Correct.
You just instruct your mind once, it remembers. It doesn't need to be told 5 times,
Correct.
right? And then I'll play with my pet.
Okay.
I'll talk to my mother. I'll take one frequency therapy before I sleep, particularly a sleep program. I'll give my mother her therapy. I'll drink a little bit of water, take a magnesium supplement to help me to sleep better. And I will put off all lights and then put my eye patch on, put my mantra on, and within 2 minutes, I'm in La La Land.
Okay. So you mentioned about the book. Can you tell us about what is that about?
Yeah.
What do you have?
So during COVID, I was in deep fear that my business is lost.
Okay.
I had even thoughts to take my own life, because I'd worked so hard and now there was nothing left. So, even therapists have suicidal thoughts.
Okay.
Therapists have mental health issues. I want to bust that myth that therapists and coaches are superhuman. We are absolutely not. We are as flawed as everybody else. And I'll tell you something else. The more flawed your therapist is, the better therapy you'll get.
He's having all experience.
Because they are experienced. They know how to talk to you. Supposing you've never had a mental health episode, you won't understand what the person is going through. You'll be impatient with them. You'll try to judge them. I'm not saying you will, but if you've experienced a fall, you can empathize with a person who's had a fall. So that's why I think people really do well with my coaching. And I'm not boasting. I'm very proud of the work that I do, because when people come to me, in 12 weeks, they're sorted. I tell them, don't come back to me after 12 weeks. I don't want to see you ever again.
Okay.
In a good way.
Hmm.
You want to have a coffee with me? Yes. As a friend, as a whatever, you know. But I don't want to see you in therapy or coaching again, because then I've not done my job. But then there are certain people with mental health issues who are with me for 1 year. It's not their fault. They have a genuine, it's not like normal, right? It's a mental depression, anxiety, OCD, or, any kind of thing, right? So it just depends, right? So the book that I wrote was, You Should Be Scared, How 7 Key Fears Can Set You Free. So because I started to look at fear as a friend instead of a foe. Because, when you have enmity to someone, there's always a lag in frequency. You are not friends, you are not syncing. So I said, why don't I make friends with fear? Because no one in this world is fearless. You hear a lot of people, I'm fearless.
Not possible.
But if a tiger entered the room, would you be fearless?
Yeah.
You would leave this podcast and run.
Yeah.
If a snake came, if a lizard came, right?
True.
So that means you're proving to yourself you're not fearless. So nobody in this world is fearless. You can either be in fear or you can have courage, right? So when I wrote the book, somebody, said, why don't you, and I was already doing therapy with people, but I was able to help them, but I couldn't help myself.
Okay.
So that made me write the book. And also it was my father's 10th death anniversary, and I wanted to do something on the occasion of his 10th year death anniversary. So I said, I'm so petrified of writing a book. I'm so full of fear. I have anxiety. I have depression. And I asked 5 of my private therapy clients, I said, can I tell your story? And all of them said yes. So I said, I'll put 2 of my own biggest fears and I'll take each of their fears. So I came up with 7 main fears that people have. And I wrote a book about the experiences of these people. And I went on a challenge and I wanted to write the book in 21 days. So from cover to cover, publishing everything, I self-published. I said, I'm not waiting for a publisher, I'll self-publish. I did everything on my own in 21 days. I still don't know how I did it. Because if you ask me to retrace the steps, but I had that, that fire was there in me, that I have to do it. I've said I'm going to do it. I've committed and I'm going to do it because I know the book is going to benefit people. So it's there on Amazon. It's cheaper than a cup of coffee.
Sure.
So it's only 100 pages. Anybody can read it.
Okay, sure. We'll put that
Yeah.
link in the comment. So other than this, from your experiences, have you, what was your biggest achievement in terms of feeling someone, you would say?
So there was a lady I still remember in Houston who had very, very, she had a very traumatic experience in her life. So she was 9 months pregnant and she knew that she was about to give birth because her water broke and her husband had gone to get the car. An Indian girl, Gujarati. Her husband had gone to get the car and he said, I'll get the car and then I'll come in, I'll put you in the car. So she went to relieve herself in the toilet. And when she pushed, the fetus came out, hit its head against the pot and died. Okay. And she didn't know what had happened. She was thinking like, have I passed a stool? And she looked down and she saw her dead fetus floating. Now that traumatized her to an extent where she began to hate people. She hated herself. She blamed herself. She hated her young son who was in the toilet with her. So she was just blaming people and hating people and blaming people and hating people. So she was almost suicidal. So I had just finished a work with another pranic healer's niece. And they got in touch with, they were friends. And they said, why don't you do distant healing with Avril? So I did a lot of pranic healing with her. But I also did a lot of mother healing with her through the Devi system. So like Mother Tara, different avatars of the female divine. I began doing a lot of work with her using mantras, using reframing. So it was a lot of energy work, but a lot of subconscious work. And within about 4 to 5 months, which was pretty quick, within 4 to 5 months, she completely changed.
Okay.
And she got pregnant again. And now she has 2 children. The boy is now about maybe, I think he's close to 19, 18, 19. We're going back more than 15, maybe 15 years. And because she refused, she had intimacy issues, right? So she couldn't have a child. But then I remember I started working with her about March, April, and by December she sent me an email saying that I'm pleased to tell you that I'm not, and there you can know the sex of the child in the States, right? So she's saying I'm blessed with a baby girl. I mean, I'm pregnant with a baby girl, and the fetus that was, that she lost was a girl.
Oh my God.
So she said, I don't know what kind of karma this is, but I'm pregnant with a girl, and she sent me pictures, and that really had an impact with me. Not on how good my healing is, not about that. It's about how she received it with such faith, with such conviction. She did all the self work I gave her. She never missed a session. But how she changed her mind, she changed her entire experience from hate to love. And it all was within her because she hated herself, right? So the way she changed, so that had a profound experience on me. There are so many stories, but I think I do a lot of work which is called trauma therapy.
Okay.
So people come to me when everything else fails.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a compliment, but the first thing people will say to me, see, we have gone to many people and nothing has worked. So it's like a challenge. So I first tell them, you take away the challenge element because it's not going to help you or me.
Okay.
Because you're putting me under pressure and you're giving yourself like last chance. Why is this the last chance? If I don't work, go to somebody else. No, but it will work. So they come to me after they've tried everything else and then they come to me. The other thing I wanted to mention is there is a difference between Kundalini yoga and Kundalini awakening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Kundalini activation.
Oh my God.
I want to make this very clear because I have hundreds of messages on social media. Ma'am, mujhe Kundalini awakening karna hai.
Okay. What is the difference?
Nobody can awaken your Kundalini. It is your personal journey.
Okay.
You can go to a guru who gives you Diksha through the third eye or through any of the chakras, and he can awaken your Kundalini. But the risk there are many people who can do it. They are adept to do it. Are you adept to handle it? Because when the Kundalini gets awakened, you're dealing with atomic force.
Okay.
People have gone mad. People are in Nimhans.
Is it?
Yes. I know people who have awakened their Kundalini and then the brain can't handle it. So first we tell people in Kundalini yoga, strengthen the vessel. Yogananda used to say, strengthen your vessel. Babaji used to say, strengthen the vessel. You cannot practice Kriya Yoga which awakens your Kundalini if your body is weak. You have blood pressure, you have diabetes, you have hate, you have guilt, you have resentment. Kundalini awaken. क्या करोगे आप? YouTube पे video बनाओगे. Followers create karoge. What are you going? What is your... So don't awaken Kundalini for nothing. You're dealing with a sleeping giant. You're awakening Shakti. She's very powerful.
Okay.
She will do whatever she needs to do to reach the top, to reach Shiva.
Okay.
Can you handle it? Are your chakras clear?
Okay.
When there is a blockage in the heart, you could end up with a heart problem. Yeah. If there are blockages in the intestines, you'll end up with intestinal problems. If there's a blockage in the brain, you can lose your mind. We don't do Kundalini awakening. That's your personal journey. What I do is Kundalini activation.
Okay.
Most people don't even know where the Kundalini energy is. If I ask somebody in the audience, where is your Kundalini energy? 99% of them won't know. Let me tell you. Kundalini energy is not in the spine. There is a specific area in the spine. And I say this with a lot of compassion because people watch a few YouTube videos and they become masters. No. You don't get mastery by watching. You get mastery through experience. Right? So the Kundalini Shakti lies in the Mooladhara chakra, which is between your anus and your female or male sexual organs. So in the middle, there is a soft spot. So for men, it is behind the scrotum. If you just touch there, there's like electricity. For women, it is again at the end of your genitals and between and the anus, right in the center. If you press there, it's like electricity. Okay. That is where the Kundalini is. When we do Kundalini yoga, we do a lot of warm-up exercises before we start the Kriya. We'll do Sufi grinds, we'll do spinal flexes. Why? We are warming up the pelvic region so that the Mooladhara... So most people's Mooladhara is closed. So with Kundalini yoga, your bladder, your rectum, your sex organs become so strong that they can open and close by will. So now my Kundalini, now my Mooladhara is completely open because I don't have that thing in my mind that I will urinate, even though my bladder is full. Because we have been shooting for quite a few hours,
Yeah.
right? And I drink lots of water.
Hmm.
But there's no fear
Mhm.
because my body has that trust. Kuch nahi hone wala hai. Just
Hmm.
relax. So a lot of people, when the Moola Bandha is closed
Hmm.
and they keep it so tightly closed, the Kundalini energy gets trapped there. So what we do is we activate the Kundalini energy. So then when we breathe in, then we close the bandha. Now the energy cannot escape. So it is forced to travel upwards.
Okay.
There's a science.
Mhm.
And as the energy starts traveling upwards, it starts cleansing all the chakras.
Okay.
So if your bandha is open and you're trying to cleanse, it won't cleanse. You have to breathe in, close the bandha, close Uddiyana bandha,
Hmm.
push the energy up. It's like now like a pressure pump. You're pushing. So push everything up, 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 and then the chakras start to open. Then the chakras will align in their own time. You can't force a chakra to open.
Mhm.
You can't use your willpower and say in 1 month it should open. No, the body will say, I'm in charge. I will open when I'm open. So Kundalini awakening is a very dangerous path if you don't have a very, very, very astute teacher who has certain siddhis.
Okay.
He's not an ordinary person.
Mhm.
He has to have certain powers.
Hmm.
Okay. And then he will know if you are his student, he will definitely know then whether you're ready or not.
Hmm.
But people who go to weekend workshops to open Kundalini to a Siddha or to a person who's, again, out of compassion, they may give you Diksha.
Mhm.
But how do they really know you?
Hmm.
How do they know your energy?
Hmm.
You've been with them for 48 hours.
Hmm.
You should be with them for at least 8 months, no?
Mhm.
So there are dangers of this. See, energy is not good or bad.
Hmm.
Energy is weak or potent. Now you mess around with it, there are repercussions.
Got it.
Energy has no discrimination about religion, race, color, creed.
Nothing.
It is neutral.
Hmm.
If your energy is weak, it's weak. If it is strong, it's strong. But you have to be in charge of your energy. So we only do activation in Kundalini Yoga. We don't do awakening. But there are some other schools who do awakening. I have learned through the lineage of Yogi Bhajan,
Okay.
which is a Sikh lineage.
Mhm.
We were strictly told awaken your own Kundalini.
Mhm.
And it is already awakened for me.
Mhm.
I can use it at will. But I don't misuse it. I never awaken it just to show somebody and to show on YouTube. I won't do it.
Mhm.
But I have spontaneous awakenings where I go into ecstasy. My students who have been practicing with me for 6 months, you can see them crying, you can see the body shaking.
Hmm.
Sometimes you can just see them, they get lost. I have to wake them up. They can see colors. It's a Kundalini experience.
Okay.
So everybody has their own experience.
Got it. It's amazing.
It is amazing. Yes, it is amazing.
Any message you want to give?
No, I have, I don't have any
Fine.
messages for people because the world is full of messages. I would
Yeah.
just say experience.
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 Okay. So I hope that this Yoga International Day, everybody will we try to remind them. I think they will try themselves and hope they will find something effective and impactful in their lives.
Absolutely. I think your podcast is doing a great job, but I think it's up to people to receive what you're giving them from the podcast. Like they say, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So my message to everybody, if I were to give a message, is to receive.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Saying